So today we have been discussing in the previous class about planning and how the different types of planning is, what is the importance of planning, what are the rules of planning, and what planning can lead to when you come out with an industry, and what are the roles and responsibilities that are required when you are framing and goals and objectives. So all these things has been discussed before, and in this we will be discussing on the steps in planning. So the planning can be classified as establishment of goals and objectives, as we know that every industry has a defined set of objectives and goals to fulfill the requirement of the industry and for the growth of the industry. So we define the goals and objectives as per the need of the industry requirements, and once it is defined, it has to be fulfilled. So these objectives can be we can fulfill these objectives by having a systematic approach, and the planning helps us to do so. So first one is in the steps involved in planning. The first one is establishing goals and objectives. So to determine the enterprise objectives, and once the organization objectives are determined, the section wise or department wise objectives are planned at the lower level. So next, after the sets, after the goals and objectives are being established, then it is required to be planned properly to achieve those things. So establishing planning premises. So that is the conditions under which planning activities will be undertaken, and the planning can be classified as planning premises can be classified as internal and external, as well as tangible and intangible, controllable and non-controllable premises. So these are some of the planning process which is required in order to come out with a well-defined structure, and which can be utilized in order to fulfill all the requirements of the enterprise, or you can say that the industry requirements. So further on moving with the steps, we have to decide the planning period, that is the amount of time which is required to establish one particular task. So how much time duration is required for that, and how it is, what are the factors influencing the choice or the period, and what leads to the development of all these things and commercialization of the new product, how the products can be brought into market, and how best the product gets sold in the market, what are the problems we are going to face, how to overcome those things. So everything has to be decided before to that, so that when we are into the real time scenario, we can make sure that we reduce the error and we come out with a successful outcome of whatever we are planning to do it. Then the time required for recovering capital investment or payback period. So always it's very important to structure the capital at every interval of time, and you have to make sure that when you are investing, how much has to be invested at the initial phase of development, and how much further on has to be put in, so that you get a better outcome at the end of this. Then further, we have to also get ready for all the commitments, whatever it comes over the time, and how best you can plan all these things to achieve the objectives and goals required for the industry to grow up. So further moving on, we have identification of alternative course of action. So sometimes our planning might not be a successful one. So you have to have an alternative solution to overcome those things and come out with a good set of rules, or good set of planning process which can overcome those problems, whatever it comes in throughout the journey of fulfilling the objectives and goals of the industry. Then we have evaluation and selection of course of action. Based on the requirement of the industry, we have to slightly move and we have to select the best possible path in order to achieve the requirements of the industry. Then developing supportive plans also, derivative and supportive plans also is very important, and measuring and controlling the process. So always you have to have a look on whatever you are doing and how best this can be evaluated in order that you don't deviate from what is required by the industry. So these are some of the things you can say, call it as all this the steps of involved in planning. And now we can further discuss on a few limitations of planning. As you know that every aspect of everything whatever we have, there will be some limitations also to look in. So the main limitation what you can say with respect to planning is like you'll be doing the planning process well ahead of time, and when you reach to that point of time, the things might not be the same what you have planned that before. So planning is a time consuming process as well, and it involves a sufficient amount of money, energy, and risk without any assurance of what it is going to happen in the future, as well as whether the organization objectives are going to be fulfilled. So all those things we cannot assure it with just a planning. So when you have the planning process, these all are some of the limitations you can talk about. So planning sometimes restrict the organization to have a risk-free opportunities, rational, and so sometimes these are all some of the limitations which come across. And scope of planning is said to be limited in the case of where rapidly changing situations. That's what, as technology changes rapidly and situations also change time to time. So if we cannot say predict that yeah this is the situation going to happen at this particular interval of time. So all these things also can impact the planning process. So establishment of advanced plans tends to make administration in flexible, and the difficulty of forming accurate premises and planning may sometimes face problems, face people's restricted to it. And all sometimes all this planning can lead to lot many problems as well, and whichever is predicted by you before is not that which happens in the over the time in the future. So all those are some of the limitations which are basically known as the problems or limitations which the planning will have. And this is are all the things what we have to discuss on planning. So planning is a very important concept. Before carrying out any activity, we have to make sure that the entire process is to be evaluated and planned well in advance, so that you come across minimum number of risk in the future. So further in the upcoming sessions, we'll be discussing on decision making, how the planning has to be brought into a decision making process, and how it can be further established for a better fulfillment of the requirements of the industry. That's all for today. We'll wind up for this. Thank you all for being part of this session. Thank you.